Will I get invited? I'm already deep inside it. I can't shake it, I can't hide it. I am the outsider. No reason to get excited. We don't have to be so divided. I can't shake it, I can't hide it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Swansonville. I am Joe Finley.
And I'm Angie Finley.
We are
The Swansons.
Happy to be back. It's been a very, very busy week for us, and well, we're excited to talk about it. First things first, the Super Bowl, Ange.
Yeah. Oh, that's first on topic
Well,
today. The biggest football game of the whole year.
Ooh.
I'm so sorry about
Oh,
that.
no worries. No, that's
Do you
fine.
need it?
That's
Do you
no,
need
I don't
it?
need that. No, I'm good.
I was just going to say the most important, everybody waits for this one game.
The one game, and it was the Patriots and the Rams. Congratulations to both of those teams. And
That's right. Los Angeles Rams, which is a rather new thing. The last few years, they came back to
That's
Los
right.
Angeles from St. Louis.
and straight out to the Super Bowl.
But they were originally from Los Angeles, right?
That's right. Well, I don't know where they're
that
originally
true?
from. They were here for a long time.
We should have.
I'm not a big football historian, to be honest with you.
I don't know. All I know is that
I know they went to St. Louis, right?
they were L.A. first, then to St. Louis.
I think they were St. Louis, LA, St. Louis. And,
Back and forth 4 times?
yeah, I think. I'll check, you know.
We'd have to fact check that.
Fact check. All right. So,
Anyways, congratulations to the Patriots.
yeah, and so
They
so
won.
those more likely than not were not your two favorite teams. I mean, if you're from Los Angeles, then the Rams made it, and congratulations, and that was great, but they lost. But the Patriots were well hated this year once again, you know, as our Super Bowl party spelt out pretty clearly.
Yeah, and I think that because people hate so much on the Patriots because they've been to the Super Bowl every year for the last 6 years.
Yes, and Tom Brady, you know, is phenomenal. And, you know, even if...
With his age. Isn't he like 41? Or that's
yeah,
what everyone's
right.
saying.
But
is
he's been just extraordinary for
and it was number 6.
16 years or something like that.
6 Super Bowl ring for him.
Yeah,
That's a lot. That's like he's the Michael Jordan of football.
that's right. What an amazing athlete, and what a great team, man. Unfortunately, the Super Bowl was not as it was expected to be. It was supposed to be very, very packed full of offense and a lot of scoring.
I
Right.
know, yeah. It was a low scoring game.
It was really low scoring, you know.
I wish we would have put the under on that in Vegas.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it was still very, very exciting, and then to see the Patriots win. I was rooting for the Patriots. I'm a fan, as you know, of the Patriots, along with many other teams.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I have a really good shot at one of my teams being in the Super Bowl every year.
Because you like more than one.
I'm not big on any.
And whose are those teams? Name them.
Well, you know, I love the
Patriots?
Patriots, the 49ers.
Okay, 49ers.
You know,
okay.
I love the Chargers.
Which
they're
is
close
Los
by.
Angeles
That's
Chargers
right.
now,
That's
not
right.
San Diego anymore.
Yeah. So
And
I like
any
the
more?
Chargers and the Chicago Bears.
Okay, good. I was saying, very good.
You know, and then I'm from Philadelphia, so the Eagles. You know, I'm usually almost always rooting for them when they're playing whatever opponent may be, unless it's the Patriots, in which case I'll root for the Patriots.
Right.
Yeah, that didn't work out that well last year.
That's right. Yeah. The Patriots lost.
Yeah.
So they were back for redemption, and they took
They
care
were
of
back for
business.
redemption, and
I thought-
Philadelphia almost made a run at it. They had another miraculous comeback
Against
via
the
their-
Bears.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, terrible
Yeah.
kick. Anyways, I was going to say, for the football game, the thing about football is that for the championship game, it's just one game.
That's it.
But in other sports, you know, basketball, it's like a 7-game series.
Right.
Hockey, 6-game series. There's all these series. Baseball's the same, I believe. But football, no.
Yeah.
One and done. You get one shot.
One shot.
That's the best. What
That's
makes
why it's
it
so exciting.
Yes, yes.
And whatever two teams arrive, both have a pretty good opportunity at winning, you know. I mean, they're both exceptional at what they do. So a bunch of friends and family came over, and so we had a lot of fun with that. And we also gave away a whole bunch of prizes, you know, like door prizes every quarter.
That's right.
Along with the pool, that
Squares, right,
everybody
yeah,
buys
so
the squares. So
It's a common thing at
yeah,
Super Bowl
everybody
parties.
buys the football squares, and so we had that going. So we had 8 winners in here. 8 different winners.
Yeah,
And, Patrick won twice.
Exciting.
Yeah, Patrick won 2 quarters because the score
Didn't change. That's right.
Yeah.
Or it was different, right? Because
I was going to win. And they kicked the field goal.
And then right at the last minute, that last field goal really changed it back to.
I don't know, the excitement wasn't as it normally is on our annual Super Bowl party, I think because of the New England Patriots and that they were winning and that kind of thing. There wasn't a whole lot of hooting and hollering going on throughout. What you got going on there, Angie? You feeling something? What do you got?
Congratulations to the Patriots.
Congratulations.
Super Bowl champions.
Congratulations to the Patriots. So we had a little. Well, you know what?
No, I was gonna say introduce our new segment. We have a new thing that we're gonna be doing on our Welcome to Swansonville podcast.
That's right. We're going to include my Uncle Wayne on the East Coast in Philadelphia, who is Uncle Wheezy. He's served in the military. He's in Vietnam, and he's an American hero, is what he is.
That's right, he is.
And he's my hero.
We want to ask him opinions and.
We're going to just call upon him once in a while and just ask for his opinion, just at random. He doesn't know that we're calling at the specific moment. He was expecting a call from us last week, and we never called. So hopefully he picks up, and we'll ask him his opinion on the Super Bowl. And remember, he's a Philadelphia fan. Go ahead and push that, Angie. We'll call Uncle Wayne. We got a ring. Oh, it's at a very low volume. Let's turn her up. Waiting on Uncle Wayne. We have a very special guest coming today, too, man. Stay tuned.
That's right.
Uncle Wayne?
If he doesn't pick up, then we'll see if he calls.
No, he'll pick up.
I can't get to the phone
Oh.
right now. Here comes the beep. You know what to do. Thank you.
Hold on. Hey, Uncle Wayne, you're on Swansonville, man. Pick up the phone.
Welcome to Swansonville. Uncle Wayne, give us a call back when you get this.
Yeah, Uncle Wayne, you're failing us.
we had this scheduled.
This was a very important segment of our podcast.
All right, call us back.
All right, thank you. And that was my Uncle Wayne, his message machine. He still has a machine. It has the same message from 25 years ago. I kid you not.
Well, we'll see if he gives us a ring back. We'll keep it.
We'll see. So waiting on Uncle Wayne. While we're doing that, I was going to say we had a little karaoke jam after the Super Bowl festivities. By the way, how about the cleanup, right? How about a little hand for that? I don't know. It was like this magical thing took place. It was like, Patriots win, and then everything started moving, and trash was being taken out, and the chairs were being put away. I walked outside, actually, to be honest with you. Alfred was going nuts in here, right? And so I was like, hey, I'll get out of the way. Everything was cleared in like 10 minutes.
Once the chairs cleared away, I had to get the Swifter out because all the alcohol spills.
Yeah, we had a little spills. So we had a little bit of that. So we started our karaoke jam, which we often do, which is really kind of cool that we're able to do that. We're just set up, plug in the iPad, and the family joined in.
That's right.
Now, you led the way. You had some really cool songs that you always seem to come up with a good karaoke jam.
Thanks.
I'm always like nervous when it's like my turn because I'm never prepared, and I'm thinking at the last minute, what could I sing? You
have to keep the song list in the back of your head.
You have one then. You have a karaoke song list. You're prepared.
Yes, I do.
Okay, I should come prepared. Jack, yeah, my friend Jack Beaver, and that's his real name, by the way, Jack Beaver.
Beaver.
And I didn't know this for the longest time, but then we went out karaokeing, right? And
he had a
in his wallet list. He unraveled this thing, right? And it was like his top 20, and he was ready to go. And this thing, he didn't just write it for that night. This is what he comes loaded with. So I should do better and have a few things ready to go. But so you led the way, and what did you sing? Do you remember?
Well, I started off with a new song because I heard it on the radio. And I was like, oh, this would be a great karaoke song. That's where I get them from
Yeah.
here. But it was that song "Shout" by Otis, right?
Oh yeah.
Now wait a minute.
I feel all right. Yeah.
You know you make me wanna shout.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good selection. I did, because I had seen on Daryl's House, which I love, right?
What a great program. We're
Kenny
big
Loggins.
fans.
So Kenny Loggins was singing some Loggins and Messina stuff. And so they were all
So it
singing,
reminded
your
you
mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and
And
roll.
that's the song you did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Oh, thank you. I was going to sing the rest of it. Get right into karaoke mode.
And your
So
daughter Lauren's a really good singer.
She's a good singer, and she played a little drums while she was here too. She's also a pretty good. She's a great piano player. But she sang a couple things. Things started taking a little turn. There were some. Let's put it this way. We didn't censor any. There's no censorship going on here in Swansonville. When we karaoke, you're able to choose whatever selection you would like to choose, and you're not judged. There were some things. I'm not saying not completely judged. I was judging a little bit in my. I was like, really? That was really good. But so there were some songs that were being sung that were funny, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's just that Lauren goes and likes to do the 80s songs,
Yes.
Cat
She loves
Benatar,
to do. Yeah.
stuff like that. And whether they were popular songs or not, but she's got the voice for it, But
Yeah.
then it was just funny because one of the songs in particular, I think she chose it not because of the lyrical content. She chose it because I think it's because of the way she likes to sing it. It's a song. When I think about you, I touch myself.
Yeah, the Divinals. So that was.
But I mean, it's just it's just our immediate family. No big deal.
So that was.
It's all good. She's a wonderful singer, and she can sing any song she wants.
Phil was here singing country. He was also.
He's got a wonderful voice.
He's got a good voice, and he's very serious about his karaoke.
And even our son Sky, who is 6 years old, got a couple songs in there.
Sky did. He sung with us as well. So that was a lot of fun. That was a kind of a really cool way to top off a great party with all our friends and family. And I would suggest that everybody home do the same whenever you get the opportunity. Karaoke just brings out the best in everybody, right?
That's right, yeah.
Right? The best and the worst, whatever it may be. It's a hell of a lot of fun. We will be right back.
And my aspiration was to get hired as a warehouseman for Bridgestone. So I would bust my butt to show the manager who brought me in to help do these loads that I can do this.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Swansonville. So that was the big Super Bowl party thing and the cool karaoke jam and stuff.
And I was going to say, great job on the party. This is one of those parties every year that we have a lot of people over all the time. It's something you've done your whole life, but since we've been married, we've done it too. And the Super Bowl is really Joe's big party, and you do a lot of the.
Well, this is now the Swansons' annual Super Bowl bash.
Oh, thank you for including me. But
So
you
that
do
was
a
cool.
really good job.
Thank you. So, a little trivia for today. We have a pretty cool thing happening in a couple of months. We get to perform with the group of musicians that we make records with in Nashville.
Exactly. That's right. I was going to say people that made Country This with us and our new album.
BAM! So we're going to be debuting some of BAM and at this award show in Las Vegas. But time for trivia.
All right.
Time for a little trivia. Today's trivia comes to us, brought to you by, us, the Swansons, at theswansonsmusic.com.
Yeah, the Swansonsmusic.com.
And little piece of trivia, Angie. I want to tell you something about Brent Mason. who happens to play on our records, and we're going to be performing with Brent live on April 17th in Las Vegas at the Hard Rock Live, where we're receiving a very, very cool award. So, but that's not the trivia. The trivia is this. Brent Mason is one of the most recorded guitar players in the history of music.
Wow. That's
Also considered to be top 10 session player of all time.
That's amazing.
Up there with Jimmy Page, people of that caliber, Brent Mason's right up there, man. It's just what this guy has done and accomplished in his career is just absolutely incredible.
I know. I can't wait to learn all about it.
So he's a Grammy winner. Brent Mason has won a Grammy. And we got some news about the Grammys as well coming up next week. Stay tuned. But what else about Brent Mason? I thought you had a little list of things here. I thought we were prepared to reel off a few things
The
about...
Grammy wasn't the big thing. He is a 14-time winner of the Academy of Country Music. He is a 2-time winner of the CMA Awards, Musician of the Year. And the award that he won 14 times...
14 times?
For the ACMs, which is the Academy of Country Music, is Guitarist of the Year.
Wow.
Wow.
So...
Well deserved. He's played on well over thousands of albums, it says.
Yes. And 2 of those albums were Country This by the Swansons and BAM!
That's right. And two are one of his own.
He's got his own albums and his own. He's done so many things in his own right. You have to check out Brent Mason. Google him. Check him out on YouTube.
We're gonna have him on the show.
We'll have him on the show, and also check him out on our records. Country This and upcoming BAM. You'll hear Brent doing what he does best. I'm telling you what. I've heard Brent play on a whole bunch of different records, and he's just phenomenal. But, however, there's something very, very special about what he's doing on the Swansons records. You don't hear Brent play the way that he's playing on our records. This is a very, very special treat. So check out Country This, and we're going to have a pre-order for BAM! And it's a great record, and it's a great record because we made this great record with great people, and one of those great people is the person
Brent
who
Mason.
is our trivia question today, or our little fun fact, Brent Mason. So thank you, Brent, for your expertise on our Swanson stuff, and we appreciate all that you've done in your career, and just wow, man, what an incredible thing. So I guess without any further ado, we will introduce our very, very special guest this week. Our mystery guest is going to be, we're not going to say, right?
No, we are. We're having him on.
We're going to say right now who he is? It's not a secret anymore.
No, because he's on today's episode.
He's coming right now. He's coming right now. Right now on our program. Well, we love him. He's your father, my father-in-law.
Doug Snode.
Doug Snode, coming up next here in Swansonville. Hey everybody, welcome back to Swansonville. We are here with our very special guests. Every week we have somebody join us who is closely connected to Angie and I in what we refer to as Team Swansons, and today is no exception. Today we had with us an extraordinarily special guest. He is an enormously kind and generous man. He's my father-in-law and Angie's father. Please welcome Doug Snode to Swansonville.
That's right. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Doug. Good to have you, man. Glad you agreed to come on and hang out with us for a minute.
That's
Sure.
right, yeah.
We want to investigate your life and interrogate you for a little bit. Find out a little bit about you and this wonderful life that you've built for you and your family. We all know the end result of what you've done in this fabulous life of yours, but we'd like to know how everything kind of started. Let's start off with your childhood. You come from a family of how many siblings?
Well, there was, I got 2 other brothers. I was born in 58, which puts me at 60. So it's been fortunate enough to have a lot of interesting things happen, and we had 4 fantastic daughters, and Angie's the youngest of 4. She's got 3 sisters, and they've all been very successful in the ventures that they've done, and it makes us proud. My wife and I are excited about telling anybody who's listening how we've been very blessed.
Let's back it up though. Before
Okay.
you met your wife, my mom, why don't you tell us about like where you're from? Because obviously we're in California, but you're not from California and you're not from Illinois. So tell us about where were you born?
Where'd you grow up? I was born in Zanesville, Ohio. So I'm proud to say I'm a Buckeye. So anyone who's from Ohio always emphasizes the point that we're all Buckeyes. Right?
And when did you move to Illinois?
My brother and I was 4 and he was 3, and my dad had an opportunity to move to a small town about an hour south of Chicago called Plainfield, and he worked at Kerr Glass. Kerr Glass was famous for their jars, Kerr on the jars, and they also made a lot of their money from beer bottles. So a lot of the top brands, Kerr Glass made the bottles that got sent to the breweries.
Budweiser, Bud Light?
Yeah, there was quite a few. Whatever, whether they were dark glass or light glass, it was, everybody had their own that they would make.
Yeah. So when you were a small child, did he have an opportunity to bring you to the manufacturing shop, or did you see that as a little boy? Or
they were hiring a lot of people. My uncle, my mom's brother, actually got the job there first, and then we followed about a year after he got the job, saying, "Hey, at the time in Ohio, there wasn't a lot of jobs in the late 50s." Early 60s. So they had an opportunity to both work at Kerr Glass for their whole life, actually. They were both kind of retired from there. So I never, when I got old enough to get a job, I didn't work there because I didn't want to work in a glass factory. But my brother Tom, who's a year younger, did for a short period of time, and he didn't stay very long.
Now, where did you go to high school?
Plainfield High School. At the time, in the 70s, there was only one high school for the whole community, and so in 72 to 76, I graduated in 76, and so there was a lot of things going on at that time, but so I went through the whole grade school through a Catholic school. So basically, the 30 kids almost, that's who you knew through the whole grade school process.
Yeah, right.
Because it was very hard to get into it. So once you got in, you didn't leave.
Did you play sports in high school or any instruments? Were you involved? I know you had a little spat with the drums, didn't you, for a while?
Well, what happened was yes, it was, first of all, when you go 8 years at a Catholic high school, you had short hair. And at that time in the 70s, everybody had long hair. The Vietnam was winding down, and so I did not, when I graduated, I did not have to be involved with the draft. But for the 4 years in high school, I went from having very crew cut haircut to having hair down on my shoulders, because that's what everybody did.
Right.
Everybody did that, and there was a lot of other things people did in the 70s. So there was a lot of experimenting with different things, but you go and you try to survive and fit in, because that was a huge transition from grade school to high school.
Yes, it is.
I was lucky to be about 100 pounds when I graduated out of grade school. And to fit in, I don't think I cut my hair for 2 years. Yeah. So it was long, and that was the style at the time. And you referenced that my little thing is that there was a group of 4 other high school friends that I knew, and we kind of started a band. And I was given a drum set for Christmas when I was probably a freshman. I wanted to do something. I started to understand different music out there, because I never, you get in the car with your parents, they were listening to country music.
Yeah.
So I knew the country music, but then when you got into high school, you started meeting new people that you didn't meet for 8 years.
Right.
And I got introduced to hard rock. The first band that I really got into, which was in the 70s, was Black Sabbath.
Right. Great band.
I had all their albums. Every time they would come out with an album, you know, we would get it. And, you know, like a lot of bands and growing up at that time, you know, they would break up. And at the time, they kind of kicked Ozzy Osbourne out of the band because he had some issues. Right?
Yeah. Did you get to see it go to a show?
We went to, every time they were in Chicago, we went to, you know, whether it was at Soldiers Field outside, was where we saw them for the first time, the friends that I was hanging out with. So while we were in a band, we would play your typical Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, you name it. We played songs from all those bands that was from England and even in the United States. So we did it for about 2 years in high school and had quite a following in the little town of Plainfield.
Yeah.
We didn't go out and make money at it. They would just come to our jam sessions and practices, and they were just going nuts.
Wow.
It was kind of weird. It was back in those days. You had to create and invent your own little smoke machine out of a lid with a pen coil that would heat up by hitting a switch.
Yeah.
Now you can go buy a smoke machine.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But at that time, you had to create. All the lighting was just floodlights built in a box. And we would flip it on, and depending on what we were doing. So we would have, you know, probably close to 100 people that would come and hear that when we were jamming.
That's like the whole town.
So when did that whole dream come crashing down on you?
No. What I wanted to ask before you asked the ending, I was going to ask because you just kind of slid in that you were given a drum set. So is that something that you had asked for because you had expressed interest to your parents, and did you have a musical background before that?
My mom, your grandma, had a musical background with the piano and the organ. She always had an organ in the house, and so she was musical. So my brother picked guitar, and I picked the drums.
Right.
I had a hard time through school with a lot of subjects. Couldn't read music, had a hard time learning, so drums was a little easier. You just kind of put the headphones on and listen to who's playing it, whether it was Smoke on the Water from Deep Purple or whatever we were trying to learn how to play, and that's how I would learn. I didn't read music on how to do the drums part of it. It was more just copying what you heard.
By ear.
By ear.
Yeah. So we can get back to Joe's questions. How did that?
No, that wasn't my question. I was closing out that segment right there.
Oh, okay.
I know we're going to wrap up.
No, but I was going to say.
I was saying, when did that whole dream come crashing down on you?
I mean, you got 100 people coming. Why stop it, right?
Well, what ended up happening was that there was 5 of us, and everybody started to. The couple of older guys graduated, and we were 2 years younger. The 3 of us there was a 2-year difference. So when they graduated, they moved on to whatever they did, and it kind of dissipated.
Right.
You know, so we never really made any money or did that kind of stuff.
Or replaced them.
But it was fun. It was a fun couple of years.
Did you meet your wife to be during this time period, or
no?
You didn't know her?
I did not.
And when did you meet Lori?
She was a year younger, which would have been in my brother's class. So my brother knew her from being in class. We were in neighborhoods that were next to each other at the time, and probably would have rode the bus if we didn't go to a Catholic school versus her going to the public school. And then when we got into high school, that was a whole different thing trying to fit in. I was too small to do sports, as you asked earlier. So I just kind of did the music thing, found a group that was a couple years older, and that's kind of how it got started. Plus, we had the extra space in our house that the drums would sit, So they would bring their amplifiers and their guitars and the
right.
and
So
the stuff.
you had the studio.
We had what you would want to call
yeah,
back in those days was
That's right.
where we would jam initially, and then we actually got it was an old farmhouse that had a barn, and in the barn there was a level that you kept all the straw up in. Well, we cleared that all out. That was the stage, so everybody else was below us. So we were playing up on stage.
You had a nice setup, yeah.
It was quite interesting, and they were looking forward to the weekend when we would play what we practiced during the week, the new songs. And
stuff.
So you met Lori
after high school. Then would have been.
It was relatively. What happened was she. The job that you would do back in the 70s was work at either McDonald's or a Burger King or something, a fast food place.
Right.
So one of my first jobs was at McDonald's, and it was also Lori's was at McDonald's. But everybody we knew that we hung out with worked at McDonald's. So when we would get together on the weekend on a Friday night, Saturday night, we would all meet at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Mine was Jack in the Box.
Well,
that's a similar experience. Yeah.
So that's where we met, and actually I had even though I struggled in high school, I always had this drive that I wanted to be in charge or be the boss. So even with McDonald's, I wanted to be the crew chief. I wanted to be the night supervisor. I wanted to be the manager at some point. And so my driving thing was constantly trying to put myself in that kind of a position. Other people wanted to come in, work their hours, get their money, and then spend it.
Right. That would be your typical young employee high school.
And that wasn't a long-term job. That would be a job for a couple years, then you would graduate out of high school, and then you would work for a factory like Kerr Glass, or in that area of Plainfield. Yeah. The jobs that you worked for was Caterpillar, that makes the bulldozers. They were big in Joliet, Illinois. There was Commonwealth Edison. The steel mill was still kind of going. Yeah. My father-in-law worked at the steel mill. A lot of other people worked. So either you worked at the mill, or you worked at Kerr Glass, or you worked at ComEd, Commonwealth Edison, the electric company. So at that time of period, that's what everybody would do, would be get a job, work there for 30 years, and retire.
Yeah.
And as everybody knows, as the generations go on, those 30-year jobs didn't really come around a lot. I mean, they're there, but you had to have more of a higher education to get into those kind of positions. And I didn't go to college.
Well, being that you were ambitious, regardless of not the educational part of it, for whatever reason that may have been, you didn't really specify, but that's not important. A lot of people have difficulties learning the way that society teaches us, and that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is less intelligent than anybody else. So you were ambitious in your work ethic and knew what you wanted to kind of do. You wanted to be at the top of the food chain. You wanted to, at McDonald's, you wanted to lead a group of other people.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I just even in a band, the drum always counts the timing off with the sticks.
You're the leader.
So even that minor little thing was something that I was wanting to be leading the band off to start the music, So that's the same thing with work. And every job that I had in the early stages, I always tried to maneuver myself into that
leadership position.
Yeah. So meeting Lori, it was probably our senior year. She was graduating. She was part of the group of the 10, 15, 20 people that you would hang out with on Friday nights. She worked there. Everybody who worked there, you became friends. The guys would be friends with the guys, and of course they would have a sister and so forth, and everybody kind of would hang out. Yeah. Big thing back in those days in the mid-'70s was drive-in theaters. Right. So you would go on a Friday night, big old station wagon. Everybody.
Is that what you had?
Oh yeah, I had a 1966 Bel Air fire engine red station wagon.
That's
we would
amazing.
call everybody in there.
That's
they would
amazing.
hide in the
That
back
sounds
so we wouldn't have to
spectacular.
pay for them.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, lay down. Yeah, you only pay for two.
Yeah, you could see movies made from that era, and you see the teenagers would do that stuff. Well, that was us. We would do that. So we would go to the drive-in, and then we'd go back to McDonald's. You know, so it was, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have the stuff to entertain you, so you had to do that kind of entertaining.
Right.
And you're right. I did meet your mother. She worked there. There was a little story that I actually was in a shift management position, and she seems to tell everybody that I fired her. I don't recall that.
Let's set the record straight.
Yes, I don't know, but it was an interesting story that she would like to tell everybody. That I fired her at one of her first jobs, and I don't think it was true. So that's kind of how we met, and then a lot of other things happened from that point. So once we graduated, we did hook up, and we got married, and we started having kids at an early age. I didn't go into the service, so. We didn't. I had worked at McDonald's and worked my way up to a position to where I was the youngest for this particular franchisee that had the handful of McDonald's. Usually, you would put somebody who was in their mid-20s or early 30s to run these things when you had a bunch of teenagers working it. Well, I was probably I was 19 years old when they offered me the opportunity to run a restaurant on my own. They were training me to do that. So it was something that I wanted to do. They tested me for the year earlier, put me in different shifts and things like that in one of the tougher McDonald's to where see how I can handle the different situations. So I guess I passed the test. And
I was going to say you went to Hamburger College.
That's my only college fame was that I went to Hamburger U in Illinois, where their corporate office was, I was in a class with guys that were 50 years old that were buying McDonald's.
Yeah.
So here you had all these 40, 50, 60-year-old guys buying McDonald's franchises, and I'm in there training at 19 years old.
Wow.
So that was...
and when did you figure out for yourself, or was it even prior to this maybe, that you didn't want to work for anybody else, that you wanted to work for yourself?
Well, the drive was that big drive at the beginning was the McDonald's thing. And I achieved it, but at the same time, I got a call from Caterpillar to come start work at Caterpillar, which was a job at that time. I was 19 years old. Lori and I gets married. We have our first child. It was Kelly, a girl. We had all four were girls.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So it was a job that everybody says you got to go work at a place for 30 years, retire, and that's what you do. And so I quit. I never really got to be a manager of that restaurant because I ended up quitting and working at Caterpillar because they called me out of the blue. Because in high school I had some machine shop background, and of course Caterpillar is running machines.
Yeah.
So I gave my notice, which the guy was crushed at the time because it was I was going to run that particular unit that he had. And I started my career. I thought I made a big mistake because then I started at the bottom in a manufacturing place are usually not very nice, very good jobs. It was called a burr bench, where you're blowing out air into a drill that has oil to make so you can bolt the transmission in. So anyway, what happened was I remember working on the midnight shift, and I was just that was the entry-level job, and I thought I made a huge mistake. But in a short period of time, I worked my way up, and the only thing you could work your way up in that situation was because it was a union shop, I became the union steward for my line of workers. So if they had a labor complaint, I was the one who went to fight for them to solve the solution. So once again, I found myself in a position where I'm helping a group of people and guiding them through their work environment.
Right.
At 20 years old.
Right. So, but the Caterpillar just to make that decision to say no, I am going to stop this, even though they were leading you up and giving you, this education with the McDonald's. Was Caterpillar offering you a better position?
No, it was
just a long-term plan.
It was back in the late 70s. It was more about long-term
security.
Employment.
Yeah.
Right.
We just had our first baby. Lori was 19. I was 20. So it was a decision that you had to do what was best for what you were doing. I always aspired to own a McDonald's, but you got to have a lot of money to own a McDonald's, and you still do these days to buy a McDonald's. So that would have never happened. But I thought I made a big mistake when I quit that job, because I took a $5,000 a year cut in pay. So I started out less at Caterpillar, but that ended up turning out to be, unfortunately, bad timing, is because I got hired in 1978, worked there for 4 years. Ronald Reagan became president in 1980, and there was a lot of economic change. We just got out of the Ayatollah had the hostages for a couple years, and it was just, our country was in a lot of trouble. There was a lot of protests and things like that. So anyway, the economy went to hell. In the 80s, Reagan did a lot of positive things, but there was also a lot of negative things. So there was a huge layoff of people in 1982. And my brother, who worked at Caterpillar from McDonald's, and a lot of other people we knew, was getting laid off because they didn't have enough seniority. So I got laid off the same day I got hired 4 years later. So in 1982, I found myself unemployed. At that time, we already had our second daughter, and Nina was born on the day that I got laid off.
Oh, right.
June 4th of 1982.
Yeah.
So I had 3 girls and no job.
Wow, what do you do? This is exciting. This is exciting. Tell me more. I want to know how you get through.
That's where your mother looked. Your mother worked at a cashier at one of the major grocery stores, and every part of the country has grocery stores. So you were a cashier or you worked in the grocery stores. So from 82 to 88, for 6 years, she was the breadwinner. I had several odd jobs. I worked at a chair factory. I worked as a garbage man. I did, work for cash doing other stuff. So that 6-year period, your mother was the breadwinner, and I was the one who helped you with your homework, gave you your bath, put you to bed.
Well, you must have also had another child during that time period. So you were busy somewhere.
Well, 3 years in 85, 3 years after I got laid off, is when Angie was born. So, ironically, all 4 births, my wife Lori would scream, "It's a boy." So she would scream with the first one, the second one, the third one, and even with the last one. And they were all girls. So she was wrong the whole time. So I'll remind her of that. But so for those, 1988, you would have been 3 years old. I kind of did all the side odd jobs, and she had the insurance, and she had the good paying job, and she hated it. She was on her feet all the time. You got to remember, back in those days, there was no computers. They had the punch in the numbers of all the tickets and what it cost. You had to add the stuff. Even earlier when we were at McDonald's, you had to write down and add up all those products.
Right.
Nowadays, you just hit the buttons and it tells you how much money everything is. You don't even have to think.
No, a cheeseburger.
These days. So in 1988 is when I stumbled across another part-time job in a tire distribution center that was about an hour drive north of where we lived, and they were looking for someone to come up and load tires onto trailers
by
hand, and they were paying at that time they were paying cash, and
cash is always good.
and in 1988 they were giving you $40 to load this truck, and it took me 2 hours to load it from front to back, physically rolling the tires in, and they would give me $40, and I'd go home with $40 in my pocket and throw it right into the pot with Lori, the breadwinner.
Oh yeah, wow.
So that's when, unbeknownst to me, I did it just for the money, but the building that I was working at was for Bridgestone Tire. It was the first tire place that I went into, and my aspiration was to get hired as a warehouseman for Bridgestone. So I would bust my butt to show the manager who brought me in to help do these loads that I can do this, and they hire me. And at the time they had a hiring freeze, supposedly. And I learned many years later that he said that he couldn't afford to hire me because of the amount of work that I was doing out on the floor loading these trailers, saving them a lot of money. I was making money, it saved them a lot of money, and I did it for a couple years for cash, where I would call every day and say, what do you got today? And they'd say, show up at 11 o'clock, show up at 1 o'clock, whatever the shift was. So basically, I would take that hour drive, walk out on the dock, and they'd tell me what I'm going to load. I load it for 2 hours, and then I'd take my $40 and go home. Is how it worked for about 2 years, until what ended up happening is that a lot of the freight that I was loading was going on what they called these company trucks, instead of sending it LTL, which is less than truckload orders. And those trucking companies started noticing their freight was missing. Over a year's time, their sales was going down because they were giving me more and more of these loads to do, where I was almost in the second year going up there every day. They had 4 LTL carriers at the time, and I'll never forget this guy's name. He worked for OK Trucking, which was one of the 4 companies. And he walked up to me and he said, what would you charge me to load our trucks? Okay. So at the time I'm thinking, geez, I get $40. I says, I didn't know what to charge him. And I asked for a lot of advice from the warehouse guy. But anyway, the problem was, he said, I can't pay you cash. I got to cut you a check. You got to invoice me. You got to do all this. I said, what the hell does that mean, invoicing?
Yeah.
So that's when I got educated on even at that time, there still wasn't the internet. There was computers, but they were big computers, and you had to have a lot of money to have computers at that time. So we basically had to go through the Secretary of State to get a business license. You had to have a lawyer do that. So I had a family member who was a lawyer. So he said, okay, we could do this. And he started filling out all the paper. He says, what do you want to call the company? And I says, I don't know. I don't know what to call it. So I don't know what it came to me, but I took all 4 of my daughters' names, their first initial of their names, and figured out how to put it together to call it a name. Well, my daughter's, the name of the company I call it was Can Enterprises. Can is K-A-N-N, which stands for Kelly, Angie, Nikki, and Nina. Now, Angie was the only vowel, so she had to move in front of everybody else, even though she was the last
You're always
one.
different, Andrew, from the gate.
I'm always very important from the
vowel.
beginning. That's what I took from it. Because
When I
without
get a
the
vowel,
vowel,
I'll take an A.
it would just be K-N-N.
So as this is happening to you, because it seems like this man who's so kind to offer you this deal, whereby he's really setting you up in business. Was that unbeknownst to you? You didn't realize that you're kind of on your way once you're doing your own invoicing and these kinds of things?
Well, first of all, to show up for those 2 years, even for cash, I would drive that hour drive and then walk out on the dock, and the load got canceled. So they didn't pay me nothing. And if I had $1 every time that I drove all the way up there, and they already told me to show up at a time, you know, it would happen a lot. So all it would have took one of those times to upset me enough to say, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't know where I'd be. But because I had 4 little kids, I said, I have to keep coming up and doing this. And even at that early stage, those first 2 years, it wasn't about forming a company. It was just about trying to make money. And so when that second year came around, I formed a company. My mother happened to be an accounting person for a company that I used to work part-time for side money. Was a garbage company. So she helped set the books up, made sure we paid our taxes, made sure we had insurance and all the things that it took even back in those days to be able to do it, because they said they wouldn't allow me to go onto their trailers unless I had insurance. So that's what ended up happening was, to make a long story short, all those things came together, and I was back in, we didn't have computers, so I hand wrote invoices. I still got the very first invoice that I invoiced by hand, hanging in a picture frame in my office right now. So we actually started the company in 1988, and it's still going right now.
Well,
Wow, congratulations.
Your mom was very instrumental then in helping you get started with your business? Or
she helped to make sure, because the thing that when you start businesses is if you don't have any education or know someone who has worked in business, and on both sides of our family, our motto was you work for these companies for 30 years, you go on your vacation when you get your vacation time, and then you get your weekends off. You don't have any other headaches but paying your bills, and your life is what it is, and that's great. That's why we have what you would say your typical work environment, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I wasn't smart enough to go to college, so I couldn't be a lawyer, and I couldn't be, an accounting or architect and those things that you have to go to college for. So basically what we did is took this opportunity. Since I had to form a company, we had to pay the taxes. So my mom covered that while I did the operation. And in about a year that when I started doing this, it started to get to the point where I couldn't do it by myself. So I would find a couple people and I would hire them. And I had to learn how to hire people. And
was there any one specific person that you recall that you hired early on?
Well,
one person that really helped you out?
Yeah.
It started out that it was a couple people that were my friends that was looking for work to do, but when it got to the point where it was overwhelming for me, my younger brother at the time was working for a grocery store, just like my wife did, Lori, and I went in to him one time and I said, listen, I can't do this by myself anymore, I need help. So he basically took his apron, threw it out onto the open top freezer and says, let's go.
Really?
Which brother?
Dwayne.
The younger one.
Yeah. Tom had a pretty good job at the time. Even though he got laid off from Caterpillar, he was able to find other jobs, manufacturing jobs. So he was working at the time when we got started, and he was making more money than what we were making. So why quit a good job? So Dwayne was the one that took the leap of faith. He's 7 years younger than me. He was born in '65. I was born in '58.
And so, but he started right in the beginning. So you're talking early '90s is when he started, because he's still working for you today.
1989 is probably when.
So is this 30 years this year?
30 years, yeah.
He was your first. So he was your first family member to come on board with Cam.
Besides
He
mom,
was
yeah.
at least that I paid, because my mom did my mom did the books for many years. Because it was very small, I didn't pay her. She just did it
for free. Yeah.
She did it for free because she knew how to do it and make sure the taxes were paid. I did the week-to-week payroll. You know, if a guy worked 8 hours, I paid him for 8 hours or whatever the deal was. So it was a very slow and methodical process of developing. You know, I could look back now, 31 years later. I could have accelerated if I knew a lot more about business and different things, but both Dwayne and I were just looking for a job.
Right.
You know, as long as we were able to pay ourselves more than we could pay ourselves working for somebody else, you know, that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is that when we started doing that one trucking guy who said I had to form a company to do his stuff, the other 3 trucking companies a year later says, what happened to all my freight? Well, they said they gave it to OK Trucking, who I was working for. So they said, well, how do we get the freight back? Well, go sign up with Can Enterprises. So next thing you know, I'm doing all the trucking companies that wanted it. So they split the work between all 4 of them. Wasn't happy for the first guy because he lost all that freight, but it really was overwhelming for him to haul all that stuff. So they divided between the other 4 companies. So and we were invoicing them, and we were able to pay ourselves, pay the taxes, and be able to save a little bit of money for different things that we wanted. The first thing that I needed was to buy my first forklift, to be able to move the racks and the pallets that had the tires in it, to be able to access to it easier.
Did you stand around it for a while and look at it and drive around the parking lot a few times?
Well,
Like, that's my.
Oh yeah,
forklift.
when you first bought your first forklift.
First of all, they wouldn't. At the time, I was 29 when I started the business, so the banks wouldn't give. The forklifts were like, even back then, was like $25,000, $30,000,
Yeah.
and they just don't loan money to people that have no collateral and no history. So I had to go to my father-in-law, who worked at the steel mill, and he had to co-sign for me. It was the most nerve-wracking thing to sit there, because, you know, he was living paycheck to paycheck like everybody else who's got a job, right? And he didn't want to be stuck with a $30,000 forklift note,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's,
and no matter how much I told him, I showed him the books, and I can easily pay for this. He still remembered pointing the finger and said, "You better not miss a payment." That's how he did it. And I was, I won't.
assuming you did. Yeah,
Good job.
I won't. And you know, eventually, you know, he passed away, but he did get a chance to see what we started. Even my dad, who has been deceased, had an opportunity to walk out on the dock and see what Dwayne and I were doing. And both of them was like, wow, I mean, you don't work for anybody? No.
that's great.
That's
You know,
awesome.
so we were like one of the first in the family tree to be entrepreneurs, even though my grandfather on my mother's side was a farmer. You might as well say you're an entrepreneur when you got a farmer. It's all risk.
Yeah.
But he also had a building that he had a tavern for all his buddies to come to after they were plowing the fields. So he was theoretically the first entrepreneur because he had his own bar and he had a grill there. So he'd farm all day and then they would drink all night.
That's a
So
pretty
So then,
good
well, that
operation.
makes sense
That was
because I
back in
say
Ohio.
because it sounds like your mom is very educated as well. So she obviously, you know, got a lot of her smarts from her growing up with her father and their family and the farm life and the tavern and everything.
Well, what you know, they at an early age, my mom was 19 years old when she got married, and she had me when she was 20. So 4 years after that, we all moved to Illinois. So that was our family vacation to go see her parents and on my dad's side. But 4 years happens in a heartbeat in your life.
Yes, it
and
does.
So, you know, we didn't really get to see our grandparents but once a year. And then eventually when a couple of our kids would get married. The grandparents would come when they were alive. Would come to visit. They would first time out of Ohio,
Right.
And then my grandma on my dad's side eventually did move to Ohio or to Illinois because my dad at that time was still alive, and she was all by herself. So she was at that age where she, even though she was in assisted living, she had a mind that was as sharp as a tack until 93 years old when her heart gave out, and she still had a sharp mind.
Right.
So we've been very blessed on that. A lot of times when people get older, the mind and stuff and Alzheimer's and things, and those are sad things that happen. We were very lucky that she was.
You seem to have been blessed in a lot of different ways in your life. You were talking about, there's something that we did not discuss, and I don't know if it's something that we skipped over or it's up and coming, but Angie talks frequently about this pizza story and the pizza store that you owned. Did that come after Can?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was in 1992, we were in business for 4 years, and we had these 2 operations going. And my fear is that all of a sudden, if both those companies said, wait a minute, we can't hire an outside vendor to do this work, we'd all be out of a job. So I said, what am I going to do to protect ourselves? What are we going to do? My background was in the restaurant business with McDonald's. And I said, well, if I lose this tire thing going, at least I can fall back on the pizza business. So I bought into a pizza franchise that was based out of Joliet, Illinois. It was called Pizzas by Marshallone's. It was started by a gentleman in Joliet, and I met him at a convention center up in the city for franchise. They had a franchise show going on. So even though I had my own business, I didn't have enough money to pay the $18,000 franchise fee. So I got my mother involved with it, and we scraped up the money, and we were partners opening up the pizza business in case if the tire thing ever got pulled from us.
Marshallone's, was it?
Yeah,
Pizzas by Marshallone's.
Pizza by Angie talks about it constantly. She's a pizza connoisseur and a fanatic. Yeah. So you say the pizza business was a little
backup.
It was a backup plan to your tire business, and you got out of. You said the last 3 years of it, you were getting busy at the other company.
We bought it in '92. We had it for 12 years, and during those 12 years, the tire business continued to grow modestly over the next 10 years from that time. And I ended up having to spend more time in the tire business because it was generating more revenue than I was making in the pizza business. So unfortunately, that got thrown back into my wife's lap of doing stuff from making the dough in the morning to closing the restaurant at night. And those last 3 years was, if she didn't lead me then, she was
Did the
never
girls
gonna
help
lead.
too? Were they?
The girls were all teenagers through that time, and they looked at their friends, and they were coming in for free food.
Oh, okay.
Made us very popular at school because we were always bringing free pizza.
They were actually some of the worst employees. Because you would schedule them on a Friday night, and they say, "Dad, I'm going out with my friends. I can't work."
But the one night he wouldn't ever let us call off was New Year's Eve, because you always had that big hospital order for the hospital, and it was like mandatory. We didn't get to choose. So we'd go in, make the 100 pizzas, whatever the order was, 150 pizzas. We had to make. He had us all in the line, all of us, sauce, cheese, and it's all coming out the oven. And once it was all done and bagged up and the delivery driver's going, then we could leave. It was right before midnight. Enough time to get to the party.
It's amazing how she remembers how I scarred her life. Right?
He said, now Angie also worked for you, was your first daughter to work for you at Can.
She actually, we had in California, there was a store that sold clothes. Right now, it would be the same as a Kohl's. If you have a Kohl's in your town.
Yes.
It was called Mervyn's.
I remember Mervin's.
You remember Mervin's?
Yes.
You're a California guy, so they were out of California. They had 2 warehouses. They had one in Ontario, California, and they had one up in the San Francisco area in Hayward.
Fremont, yeah.
Was it Fremont?
Fremont, which is up there in Northern California. Yeah.
So anyway, they asked us to do this process of logistically bringing their product in, separating it all, and sending it to the individual stores. Well, we were part of a team. There was a couple other companies involved in it, but we had a special part of it that we were operating. And at that time, Angie was 21, 22 years old, and coming out to California. And I says, since you're out here, do you want to oversee this project? I mean, we had to hire all the people. We had to make sure they were certified. We had to make sure that the orders were filled, and that we had to keep up our end of the deal with the other 2 companies that were in there working. So I would go into the warehouse, that the guy that run Ontario, he'd close the door. I said, how are we doing with our part? And they were saying Angie was doing a great job, and she was giving us all the information we need. And you guys are outshining the other 2 vendors that we have in here. I said, wow, fantastic. I said, she's only 21, 22 years old, with a team of, I don't know, it had to have been at least 40, 50 people. You remember how many people you were overseeing?
Yeah, it was about that for up north, and then the one down here was bigger, 50 people.
50 people that she was managing, making sure they were scheduling them, they got paid right. And then we had another building up in the San Francisco area, so I flew up there to ask how she was doing up there, because she would drive or fly up there, and she was overseeing both those operations. So I'd walk in, and that guy would close the door, the GM of that building, and say how great she was doing there. I said, wow, fantastic, And,
yes.
And they wanted us literally to take over the other 2 processes from the other 2 companies. A good thing, because that was a hard decision to make, because I knew who the other 2 vendors was, and they actually included me in there. They had the business first and included me in to help. For me to take it from them a year and a half later is not good business, right? So I didn't have to make that decision, because Mervin's eventually went bankrupt.
All right, so Mervin's closed down, and so that ended your decision-making process on that.
Yeah, and it allowed Angie to go back being a 22-year-old young lady in California.
Yeah.
So I think the timing was right. It was a good experience, I'm sure, for her. It was proud for me that she was able to handle something that had 50 plus people involved in it, and she outdid the other vendors. So that's.
She's doing the same thing with the Swansons.
Well, so she's got that blood. She's got that entrepreneur blood. She knows how to manage things. I don't know if you got the drive that I talked about that I had, but the thing that eventually is great is that we're at a point now where we just had our 31st anniversaries coming up in June.
Oh, congratulations.
And we're in 32 states. We have operations in 32 states, and we probably have, between contract labor and permanent people and so forth, probably close to 600-700 people across the country.
Wow.
That we're able to supply work for. They make a good living. We do the best we can for them. We treat them right. And
wow, that's amazing. That's something to be proud of.
I was raised Roman Catholic. Went to a Catholic grade school for 8 years. So that's, your parents are the ones that lead you to where you come from. And Lori's family, her main name is Ruchko, which is Russian, and they belong to the Orthodox faith, which is considered Russian Orthodox. There's the Greeks, there's the Greek Orthodox.
They all go to the same, pretty much. So it's
both
similar.
Both the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox, there's a lot of similarities in their religious and how they practice it, but there's also some differences. But the key thing is that, I continue to go where I was raised. Lori continues to go where in her faith that she was raised. We go to each other's for the bigger functions, Christmas and Easter and things like that. So I think what's, we just celebrate, we're 41 years of being married.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. Yes.
We went through a lot of tough times and a lot of struggles with me not having a job in the beginning of that part. Even running the business, I was always wanting to make sure she was involved in it, so if something happened to me, she knew exactly how to continue on to do it.
I had one daughter, and wow, 4 of them, to raise 4 of them, bing, bang, boom, boom. So that, and then all the other things. Then your daughters had children, so you have 6 grandchildren.
6 grandkids.
As well.
They're great.
And what I would like our audience to know about Angie's father, aside from his ambition, his generosity and what he does to allocate his personal time to give that time away to other people, to his family and his grandchildren, and he doesn't miss any functions. He's I don't know how you get everywhere the way that you do. You've got your business functioning in Chicago. You come to California. You've been back and forth doing those 2, and now you're everywhere else in the United States. And you still find time for your favorite passion, which is golf.
Yeah, it's the driving force that keeps me going. I have a huge passion for it. My 2 brothers have a passion for it. Have a lot of friends that we get together and play golf. You always have to have something. You always have to have something to offset, whatever your main...
The hustle and bustle.
I mean, you're no secret to having your own business and know what that takes, and also drive this and your faith and all that stuff too. So you got to have all that in to make it work. But it's been a heck of a ride.
Well, we've had the opportunity to golf with you. By the way, did you teach Angie to golf in the beginning, the early stages?
Well, Angie, out of the 4 daughters, the athletic end of it came a little easier than the first 3, although they all played sports. Angie was very good at softball, and she took that swing from a softball to swinging a golf club is just lowering it down farther down. So for her 4 years in high school, it came relatively, in my opinion, easy to her. But you're still a teenager, and what happens is you're more worried about your friends and your boyfriends and your personal life, instead of, like, say, a Tiger Woods situation where he was driven by his father to constantly practice and play. And we weren't that way. We felt that we didn't want to specifically drive to where maybe they would have hated it more than liked it.
But she loved it,
And she still can play good if she, I know you both play together, which is nice because...
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to interrupt, but we helped Doug win a tournament, the 2 of us here. 2nd place over there at the Sierra Lakes 2 years ago. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's something we could do for the rest of our lives, but I think
But you are exceptionally good at this
Very
thing.
good.
Abnormally good, like professionally good. What is the best round that you've ever played?
Oh, I've shot a 72, which is par.
Yeah, so that's just incredible.
But one time. I mean, everything has the click.
So you hit the ball off the tee, and every time it just goes forever, right down the middle of the fairway.
Have you ever gotten a hole-in-one?
I have had 2.
Wow. You are a lucky guy.
2 hole-in-ones, yes. And my younger brother has 1. And the middle one has not had one. So we remind him of that all the time.
Well, a lot of it has to do with timing, luck, but more than that is it has to do with you and the person that you are and the ambition that you have and how much you give of yourself to other people, and that comes back to you in a way that you can see with your life successes. And we, as the Swansons, are very grateful for you being so supportive of us since the day we started, and we weren't really very good. And you take the time out of your very, very busy schedule to travel very long distances, sometimes half asleep, to to
come see us, and
and
not
support
just
us.
here in Southern California. You came to Nashville, Tennessee. You came to Las Vegas. So
Let's
you
show
just
Chicago.
follow us around, and we really
We
appreciate
appreciate that, and that says a lot about you, and we appreciate you, and we are so happy to have had this very special guest here with us today in Swansonville. Thank you, and God bless you, Doug Snode.
All right.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be right back.
Well, welcome back to Swansonville. Man, that was great.
Yeah, that was a fun interview, learning more about my dad, your father-in-law.
Yeah, man,
Doug
your
Snode.
dad is a character, man. He is a very special man. So that was a lot of fun. What'd you think, Vic? It's all right? All right. Good. Very good, very good. So that was good. So, well, normally, and we close out with a song, right? We play a little something.
That's right, and sometimes we do some new songs, and sometimes we do some songs off country this.
Right, but they're all our songs. We have done all original songs thus far. However, we're going to maybe be doing some songs with some other artists on some upcoming shows.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that. Lots of fun stuff in store.
You never know what you're going to get.
You never know who's going to show up in Swansonville. That's the thing, and it was a great privilege to have your dad in here. We're going to have my mom in here sometime as well, sometime soon, I hope. Just to show like this is our family. This is Team Swansons. This is where we come from, and this is what we do. So all humans are interesting, and we would love to have maybe some of you on our program sometime soon.
That's
Now
right.
we're going to
Give
sing
us
a little
shot-
bit of a song, right?
I was just going to say, give us a shout out if you're interested. We always like to learn about new people and everyone's journey through life, and this is kind of what this show is based upon, is us showing you our journey, and then through that we get to interview interesting people and learn about their journey. And,
Right.
and the point of the story at the end is that we're all one, right?
It's just connecting, everybody connecting, and appreciating what we all do separately and for each other.
Yeah, so thanks to all our guests, and thanks to all our audience members tuning in and listening.
Yeah,
But
we really appreciate that, you guys. And so here's the song. What is the song?
Don't you forget.
Oh, I
'Cause
forgot already.
It's a song about don't you forget that you're special.
Don't you
So-
forget. So we'll sing just a verse in the chorus of it.
Yeah.
So we'll sing the last verse. This song is on our
Album Country This. And it's called Don't You Forget.
Oh, my Lord, here I go again. I'm walking through fire and losing desire, and I can't pretend that I'll be alright. I think I need a hand, 'cause I'm drowning in sorrow. It looks like tomorrow is over again. And now don't you forget that you're someone. Don't you forget I'm your fan. Don't you forget that I love you forever and ever, ever again. And now don't you forget to be happy. Don't you forget I'm your friend. Yeah. Don't you forget that's forever, forever and ever, ever and ever again. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Yeah. Amen. That was nice, Ange. Give me a kiss. I
Thanks,
love
Joe.
you, Angie.
And I love you, Joe. And we
love y'all.
you. Thanks
Thanks
for
everybody
tuning
for
in.
joining us here in Swansonville, and we will see you next week. Peace and God bless.